My name's Cassandra. I'm 28. And I was a medic attached to a recon squad in Afghanistan. Or, well, I was a medic. Things are different now. It's funny, isn't it? How one stupid, impulsive moment can just derail your whole life. And everyone acts like you're the bad guy for it. Like I asked for any of this. It all started with Ethan. Of course, it did. Everything always comes back to Ethan, doesn't it? He was my ex, a grunt in another company. And honestly, the most infuriating, manipulative piece of work I've ever had the misfortune of dating. We'd broken up. Properly broken up, like 6 months before, but he just couldn't let it go. Always texting, always calling, always trying to worm his way back in. And I, like an idiot, kept answering, not because I wanted him back. Obviously, I felt bad for him. He was always so dramatic, always talking about how lost he was without me, how I was the only one who ever understood him. And yeah, maybe a part of me liked the attention. Who wouldn't, especially out there? It's not like there was a line of guys waiting to sweep me off my feet in the middle of nowhere. This particular day, we were out on patrol. Nothing unusual, just a routine sweep of some villages that had been acting up. Sergeant Miller, our squad leader, was a pain in the ass. Always by the book, always lecturing, always making everything harder than it needed to be. He never liked me, said I wasn't focused enough, whatever that meant, as if I didn't pull my weight. I always did my job, always, but he just had it in for me. I swear. And then there was Garcia, my fellow medic, always watching me, always judging. She was one of those perfect types, you know, always prim and proper, never a hair out of place. Even in a sandstorm, just radiated superiority. I hated it. We were in the middle of this godforsaken dusty village, and the comms were crackling, as usual. Miller was barking orders, talking about some intel he'd just gotten, something about increased activity in the area. Blah, blah, blah. I'd heard it a million times. It was always increased activity. We were always walking into a potential ambush. It was just background noise. And then my phone buzzed. It was Ethan. A picture of him in his bunk, looking all sad. And then a text, thinking of you, miss us. My stomach twisted. He always knew how to hit me where it hurt. We had history, right? Years of it. And he was just so persistent. I typed back without even thinking. We can't. And then he sent another one, like immediately, just thinking about the last time. Remember? And then another picture, something from when we were together, something private. And honestly, it just threw me. My heart was pounding. It was stupid. I know, but it was just so unexpected. And Miller was still droning on about patrols and contingencies and whatever. I just needed a second. A minute to myself. To process, to deal with Ethan and his constant neediness. So I did it. I switched off my comms, just for a second. I swear. That's all I thought it would be. A quick minute to tell Ethan to back off, to shut him down, to remind him that it was over. Even if he couldn't seem to grasp that simple fact. He was always so demanding, always wanting my full attention. And honestly, it was exhausting. I was trying to do my job, and he was just there, in my head, making everything complicated. It wasn't my fault he was so clingy. I started typing furiously. Ethan, seriously? I'm working. You need to stop. But then he sent another one, another memory, something that made me blush, even out there in the dust. And I got caught up in it. It was like a little escape, a momentary reprieve from the dusty reality of everything. Just me and him. In that stupid little bubble of ours. Like nothing else existed. It was childish, maybe, but it felt good to feel something besides tired and annoyed. I was focused on my phone, my thumbs flying across the screen, trying to formulate the perfect response that would shut him down for good, but also not completely alienate him. Because who knew, right? Maybe someday we could be friends again, or something. And then it happened. Not a loud explosion at first, just a dull thud, almost like something hitting the ground far away. But then the shouting started. Miller's voice, sharp and panicked. And then gunfire. So much gunfire. I looked up. My comms were off. My heart dropped. No. I fumbled with the switch, my fingers trembling, but it was too late. The world around me had erupted. The thud I'd heard was an IED. The squad was hit. Hard. I could see the smoke. The chaos. I could hear the screams. And I froze. It was like everything slowed down. I could see Miller, face grim, yelling into his comms, but I couldn't hear him. Not really. I was still caught in the silence of my own doing. When I finally got my comms back on, it was a cacophony. Miller was screaming my name over and over again. Cassandra. God damn it. Cassandra. Respond? Where are you? Medic. And then Garcia's voice, tight with panic. Sergeant. She's not answering. I can't reach her. The shame, the immediate, overwhelming wave of shame, hit me so hard I almost doubled over. But then it turned to anger. Why were they blaming me? I was right here. I hadn't gone anywhere. I finally managed to stammer out. I'm here. What happened? My voice sounded weak, pathetic. Even to me. Miller's voice was pure venom. Where the hell were you? We've got multiple casualties. I called for you 5 minutes ago. 5 minutes? 5 minutes? It couldn't have been 5 minutes. It felt like seconds. I tried to explain. My comms must have cut out. The signal's always so bad out here. You know that it wasn't a complete lie. The signal was bad sometimes. And it was believable. Right. Who would question that? But Miller wasn't buying it. Don't you dare, medic. I saw you. You were looking at your phone. My blood ran cold. He saw me. No. He couldn't have. I was hidden behind a wall. Or a truck. Or something. I must have been. I quickly tried to backtrack. No. Sergeant, I was checking my med kit, trying to organize supplies. I heard the explosion. I swear. He just scoffed. Get your ass over here. Now, I ran. My legs felt like lead. The scene was worse than I'd imagined. Private Davies was on the ground, holding his leg, blood spreading rapidly on his fatigues. Specialist Chen was slumped against a wall, his eyes wide and unfocused, a nasty head wound. And Corporal Rodriguez, he wasn't moving at all. Garcia was already there, frantic, trying to triage, her face pale. She shot me a look that said everything. Disappointment, anger, fear. I hated that look. It made me feel like dirt, even though I hadn't done anything that wrong. I was just distracted for a second. I knelt beside Davies, my hands shaking as I pulled out my supplies. What happened? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. IED, Garcia said, her voice tight. Then small arms fire? Rodriguez took a round to the chest. Chen, I don't know. He hit his head hard. Davies has a compound fracture, maybe an artery hit. My training kicked in, or at least some of it did. I started barking orders, trying to sound authoritative, trying to erase the last few minutes from everyone's mind. Tourniquet on Davies? Get an IV started for Chen? Miller. Where's our cover fire? Miller was already on the radio, yelling for air support. For extraction? He was ignoring me. He just kept looking at me. That same disgusted look on his face. It wasn't fair. I was doing my job now. Why did he have to hold that against me? It was just a momentary lapse. Everyone has those. We worked on Davies and Chen for what felt like an eternity. Rodriguez was already gone. I knew it, but I still went through the motions, trying to find a pulse, trying to convince myself that maybe, just maybe, I could do something. But there was nothing. He was gone, and a part of me, a tiny, dark part, just wanted to scream. Not because Rodriguez was dead, but because it made my mistake so much bigger. It wasn't just a minor screw-up anymore. It was this. The medevac arrived, a whirlwind of dust and noise. We loaded them up, Davies and Chen, both still barely conscious. I stayed behind, Miller just staring at me. I could feel Garcia's eyes on me too, but I refused to meet her gaze. I focused on packing up my gear, making sure everything was in its place. Like, if I was orderly enough, it would somehow undo what had happened. Back at the base, it was pure chaos. Debriefings? Questions. More questions. Miller didn't mince words. He told them I'd been unresponsive, that I'd had my comms off. He said I was distracted. He said it was negligence. And everyone just believed him. No one asked me what happened. No one asked if the comms were actually faulty, which they probably were. No one asked about the pressure I was under, about the constant demands, about how exhausting it was out there. No, it was just Cassandra was negligent. I tried to explain myself. To Captain Evans, a stern, unforgiving man who looked at me like I was something he'd scraped off his boot. Sir, I swear, my comms just cut out. It happens all the time with this old gear. I was trying to fix it. I was never not paying attention. He just looked at me, cold and unblinking. Sergeant Miller reported he saw you on your personal device. Private, is that true? My heart hammered. He saw me. He really saw me. I stammered. I might have glanced at it, sir. But I wasn't distracted. I was just checking the time. Or a message from my mom. She worries. You know. It was a desperate attempt. I knew it. But what else could I say? Admit I was sexting my ex while my squad was getting ambushed. Never. He sighed, a long, drawn-out sound that made me feel even smaller. Private? We have clear protocols regarding personal devices in the field. And frankly, your explanation isn't adding up. We have a deceased soldier, and 2 more severely wounded, and you were unresponsive for crucial minutes. But I saved them, I blurted out, desperation rising. I worked on Davies and Chen. I did everything I could. I got them stable. They're alive because of me. Captain Evans just rubbed his temples. That's your job. Private? What about Rodriguez? If you had been where you were supposed to be, when you were supposed to be, would things have been different? That question, it haunted me, but not in the way he thought. It didn't make me feel guilty. It made me feel resentful. Why was it my fault Rodriguez died? He was hit by an IED and then shot. That could have happened to anyone. It was just bad luck. Bad timing. Not my fault. If Miller had been more prepared, if he'd gotten better intel, if the comms had actually worked, maybe Rodriguez would still be alive. Why was it always on me? The investigation dragged on. Every single day was a new hell. Everyone looked at me differently. The other medics? The other grunts. Even the cooks in the mess hall. Whispers followed me everywhere. That's her. The one who... They didn't even need to finish the sentence. I knew what they were thinking. Garcia. The perfect little angel. She was always there. Hovering, offering me her sympathy that felt more like judgment. Cassandra, you know you can talk to me, she'd say, her voice soft, but her eyes hard. It's okay to admit when you've made a mistake. I didn't make a mistake. I'd snap. Every time. My comms cut out. How many times do I have to tell you people? She'd just shake her head, a sigh escaping her lips. It's hard, I know, but denial won't help you. Denial? I wasn't in denial. I was telling the truth. They were just choosing not to believe me because it was easier to have a scapegoat. Someone to blame for the tragedy. Instead of admitting that sometimes bad things just happen. Ethan, of course, chose the absolute worst time to decide he suddenly cared. He started texting me constantly, asking if I was okay, if I needed anything, if I wanted to talk about it, as if he wasn't the whole reason for this mess in the first place. I ignored him at first, but he was relentless. He even showed up at my barracks, trying to see me. I just stared at him, bewildered. What do you want? He looked so earnest, so concerned. I heard what happened. I wanted to make sure you were all right. You heard what happened? I scoffed. You caused what happened, you idiot. If you hadn't been bothering me, none of this would have happened. His face fell. How is this my fault? Cass, I was just trying to be there for you. By sending me pictures of I trailed off, glaring at him. You distracted me? You know how important comms are. You knew I was on patrol. He actually looked hurt. I didn't know you were on patrol right then. And I just sent a text. It's not like I forced you to answer. See, always deflecting, always making me out to be the bad guy. This was exactly why we broke up. He never took responsibility for anything. The military wasn't done with me, not by a long shot. They called a formal hearing. I had to sit there, under the harsh fluorescent lights, and listen to Miller recount his version of events, all about my unprofessional conduct and disregard for protocol. He even brought up other times, little things, like when I'd been late for formation once because my boots were dirty, or when I hadn't finished my paperwork on time. He was just trying to make me look bad, trying to paint a picture of me as some kind of screw-up. Then Garcia testified. Her voice was calm, measured, almost sympathetic, but every word was a stab. She talked about how I often struggled with focus, and how I prioritized personal matters over professional duties. She even said she'd offered to help me, but I'd refused assistance. Lies. All lies. She never offered to help me. She just watched me, waiting for me to mess up so she could swoop in and be the hero. My lawyer, a tired-looking guy who barely seemed to care, tried to argue my case. He talked about my past record, about how I'd been a good medic, how I'd saved lives before. But it was like they'd already made up their minds. They didn't want to hear it. The verdict came down like a hammer. Dishonorable discharge? And not just that. They stripped me of all my benefits. My bill, my medical, everything. They said I was a danger to my fellow soldiers and that my actions had directly contributed to the death of Corporal Rodriguez. My world shattered. I remember sitting there, the words ringing in my ears, and all I could think was, this isn't fair. This isn't fair. This isn't fair. It was a witch hunt. They needed someone to blame, and I was the easiest target. A young woman already on Miller's bad side, with a demanding ex. Perfect. I tried to appeal. I wrote letters. I made calls. I even tried to get Ethan to back me up, to admit he'd been harassing me. but he just said he didn't want to get involved, that it was my problem now. Typical. When I got home, it was even worse. My parents, who had always been so proud of me. They looked at me with this mix of pity and disappointment that was almost harder to bear than the anger. They'd read the news, seen the reports. The official line was that I'd been negligent, that my actions had caused a death. They never said it out loud, but I could feel it. The unspoken accusation, my friends from high school, the ones who had always cheered me on, they started avoiding my calls. Social media was a nightmare. People I didn't even know were sending me hateful messages, calling me a murderer, a traitor. It was relentless. I had to deactivate everything. It was like I was living in a nightmare. I tried to get a job, any job, but everywhere I went, they asked about my military record. And when I told them, when I tried to explain, their faces would just harden. We'll call you. They'd say, and they never did. The dishonorable discharge was a scarlet letter, branding me for life. I couldn't even get a job stocking shelves at the local grocery store. It was humiliating. I ended up working odd jobs, cash only, just to survive. Cleaning houses, waitressing at a dive bar where no one asked questions. Anything to make enough to pay rent on a tiny, run-down apartment. I felt like I was constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for someone to recognize me, to point and whisper, "And Ethan?" He moved on. Of course, he did, last I heard. He was engaged to some sweet, innocent girl who probably had no idea what kind of snake he was. He even sent me a text once, just a few months ago. A picture of him and his fiancée, smiling, like he was trying to rub it in. He wrote, "Hope you're doing well. Cass, life's good." I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Sometimes, late at night, when the cheap whiskey has dulled the edges of everything, I think about Rodriguez, and Davies, and Chen. I think about what happened, and I still, honestly, truly, believe it wasn't my fault. I mean, sure, I had my comms off for a minute. A minute! Was that really enough to cause all that? It was an IED, for crying out loud. Those things are random. And then the gunfire? It was an ambush. That could have happened whether I was there or not. I try to tell myself that I did my best, that I reacted as fast as I could after the fact. I saved Davies and Chen. Didn't I? They're alive. They're walking around, living their lives, probably completely forgetting about the medic who patched them up. And what about me? I'm here, scraping by. My life ruined. It's just so unfair. I always try to do the right thing. Mostly, everyone makes mistakes, right? Little ones. And mine was it just happened to have really bad timing. It wasn't intentional. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. I just wanted Ethan to leave me alone. And now I'm the one paying the price? While everyone else, Miller, Garcia, even Ethan, they all get to go on with their lives, untainted. I see them sometimes. Their faces on the news or in old photos. Miller got promoted. Garcia is some hotshot trauma nurse now, probably saving lives and getting praised for it. And Ethan, he's building a family, a perfect little life. And me, I'm still here, stuck in this mess, because of one stupid, insignificant moment that somehow blew up into a whole disaster. It's like the universe just decided to punish me, for no good reason at all, and no one, not a single person, understands what I went through. They just see the headlines. They just hear the accusations. They don't see the real victim here. They don't see me